What's up YouTube? This is a how-to for a wheel bearing on the front of a Mark III Jetta. This video will also be able to be used on any Mark III Golf or a Cabrio and probably a Mark III GTI too, but I'm not sure on that one. I've never done this before, so it'll be a learning process for me. I read up on it on a one of the forums. I think it was VW Vortex. Somebody did a DIY on how to do this, but I didn't see any great videos out there on like showing what actually had to be done. So that's what my goal is with this video. All right, let's jump to some of the tools you'll be needing. Okay, step one in the process is obviously taking your wheel off. Your lug bolts are a 17 mil, so I have an impact socket for that. Okay, now that you have the wheel off, next is to tackle the caliper carrier. So the carrier bolts, there's two bolts. Let me show you. There's two bolts right on the back of it. There's one here, it's really dark, but there's one right at the tip of my finger and there's one directly below it. All right, I fought the second one a little bit, but I finally got it off. So once you have this loose, you can just pick it up and tuck it up out of the way. Be careful not to rip your brake line. Otherwise you'll really hate yourself. And then you can take your rotor off and set it off to the side. The next step is going to be actually taking that nut off. Yeah. I believe this nut is a 30. I have a 30 here. Yep, that nut is a 30. So you get the breaker bar again. Maybe you'll want an extension to go with it, so you're not digging up your panels. And give it a whirl. Now of course it's going to want to spin. By this point, you can switch back over to your air gun and give it a whirl. Don't lose this nut. It's a really important nut. Some nuts are important. More important than others. All right. Next thing you're going to want to do is take off your dust shield. I don't know what size those are, but let's go find out. All right, now that you're getting your dust shield off, this is an 8 mil by the way. The next bolt you're going to take off is right back in here. It's that bolt that right where my flashlight is. I'll highlight it in the footage there, but it's right there. And then on the other side is a nut. It's that one right there. That's going to have to come loose next. So I'm going to get set up taking that off. Okay. Like I said, the next bolt you're going to take is the one down at the bottom here. That is a 17 mil, and that is both for the nut and the bolt. So you can take your air gun and get yourself all set up. There you go, that bolt's out. Okay, next thing is, well, find a new support location for your brake caliper because it's not going to work there anymore. I should have brought that up earlier. Okay, cool. I just went and got myself a zip tie, big one. You can use whatever you want. You can use a shoelace or rope or honestly whatever crap you have around. I'm just going to feed it up in the slot of my caliper and tie it off to one of my springs. Well, one of my springs, I mean the only spring here. There you go. Caliper's up out of the way and you're not going to damage your line. Okay, next you're going to take off the ball joint. Your ball joint is this guy right here. There's a nut on the bottom. And that is a, I believe it's a 19 mil. Pretty much everything on these cars is either a 17, an 18, or a 19. Yeah, pretty straightforward. It is a 19 mil socket. Okay, now that you've got that off, you're going to screw it partially back on. Because the next step is to break that loose. With said hammer, mini sledge, regular hammer, whatever you have, you're just going to have to beat on it until it comes free. I don't know how well this is going to work yet. Yes! This washer fell out of here somewhere. Hold on to this. Alright, the next bolts, you're going to have, it's what actually connects your housing, hub, assembly, whatever you want to call it, to your strut. And that is these two bolts right here, A and B. And on the other side, they have a nut. And I think these are 18s. They are. So you're going to need a 18 mil wrench and an 18 mil socket. I got to find my wrench. Now that you found your 18 mil wrench and socket, you can get this job done. Now if you're like me and you don't have an 18 mil wrench, like I should, you can also just use a ratchet and 18 mil socket that is in the reverse direction, and that'll do the same thing. Now at this point, these are the only two bolts holding this whole thing to your car. So use a little bit more caution. You're going to have to lift up on this a little bit and wiggle the bolts, and they should come right out. There you go. Okay. Now at this point in time, if you pull on this, it should be broken free from everything. Crap, there's another ball joint on the bottom. Don't ask me how to get that one off. I'll figure something out. Okay, the next thing to do is you're going to try to take out the hub. This won't spin anymore because I've already started, but you do that by pounding it out of the bearing that's currently in there. Now, you're going to want to find something. I'm using a vise, but you can use two pieces of wood that are screwed or nailed together or something. But you want it to be able to rest in here on either side and then have the hub fall out the bottom. Then you'll find a piece of pipe, or I'm using a big socket. I would not necessarily recommend using a socket, but you're trying to pound out this ring right in here. This is your bearing, your wheel bearing. And you're trying to pound this ring out right there. So just find something that fits right down there like that. Nice and snug. And you just honestly start beating on it. Okay, update time. I fought this thing for what felt like forever. This is the old bearing that I pulled out. This is the new one. Now this bearing broke apart on me as I was taking out the hub. So I finally got all that separated. As you can see, there's tools everywhere because it did not go very well. This is the hub. The bearing sits over this part. Well, I mean, this part slides into the bearing once it's in, but this is where it came out of. One thing you need to look for is there's two of these rings. I only saw the one. There's actually two of them, as I drop one. And they sit in those little ring grooves there. And I forgot to take this inside one out. and that's why I broke the inside of my bearing when I was trying to pound out this piece. So keep that in mind. Make sure you pull both of those rings out. And otherwise you just beat on it with a hammer and yeah, it'll eventually come free. When you're ready to install your new bearing, you're going to reinstall this C-clip thing. I don't know what they're called. I knew what they're called. I forget now. Don't let it do that. Okay, there it is. So now you are able to flip this thing over and tap your new bearing in. Now that your bearing's in, you're going to, you can't really see this. You're going to reinstall this clip on this other side. Be careful again not to let it explode on you. Did it like it did on me last time. I don't know what they're called, so I'm just gonna call them bearing clips. That's a bearing clip. Okay, new bearings installed. Everything's back together. Now, the next step is to put your hub back in. You can see here, if you look on here, sometimes the inside of the bearing, this inner lip, will break off of the bearing and stay stuck on here. And you can see here, somebody took a grinding wheel and cut it, which is entirely fine, but you don't really want to leave a notch in your hub like this guy did. I used a bearing puller to get this apart earlier because mine did the same thing. And that's probably the better way to go. But if you're in a pinch and you don't have a bearing puller, a grinding wheel will do. Just be careful. All right, now it's all back together. Moves all nice again. There's not near as much movement as there was in the bearing before. There was a little bit of movement. That's why I decided to do this in the first place. It was making noise moving. So I decided it's time to do it. But yeah. All right, guys, that's all I have for this video. You just have to put this back in your car. The assembly process is the exact reverse of what you did. And yeah, I mean, apart from, I made that little mistake in the video, but I'm gonna make sure to put in a little clip or notes that just tell you when to, not do what I did. I learned this process tonight. I just, read a DIY online and needed to do it, and I didn't see any great videos detailing how to do it. So hopefully this was a little bit better than some of the other stuff out there. And yeah, hopefully it was of some use to you. So if this video is of help to you, I'd really appreciate a thumbs up and a comment. This is my first ever DIY and one of my first videos ever. So if you want to see more of this stuff, please let me know. I'd love to hear it. Yeah, that's all I have. Thanks for watching. Bye.